I would like to classify these challenges into two areas. First is the technical challenge, right? So the technical challenges have always lived with the CIOs. The technical challenges, in terms of adopting new technology, getting new technology in the organization, getting the people to, agree to the new technology, managing the challenges around ensuring that the lights are on and, all the systems are working and available all the time. But I think, I would like to talk about a slightly different challenges that I see CIOs facing today, and that is to actually change the way they think and to take a larger responsibility of business. CIOs today need to become business leaders. And when I talk about CIOs becoming business leaders, I would really like to talk about CIOs being business leaders first and CIOs second. Traditionally, the CIOs have been techies first and business leaders second, and that has to reverse. And I think that is really the biggest challenge for CIOs, transforming themselves and aligning themselves with the business realities and making a difference and making their businesses change. So that's really, to me, the biggest challenge. If you look at the world over, a large number of CIOs continue to report to the CFO. And if you look at this has a historical grounding. IT was first implemented in the finance function, right? Most organizations, when they started thinking IT, they first thought about computerizing their accounts. And so traditionally, the CIOs continued to report to the finance function because the CIO was enabling the accountant or the CFO to actually do their jobs quickly and faster. I think this has changed, right? And organizations that have evolved have actually transformed to have the CIO report into the CEO. Now, it's a catch-22 situation. I think the CIO needs to evolve himself to be in a position where he should report into the CEO. He has to demonstrate that he's adding value to the business. And vice versa, the organization also needs to understand that the CIO has a much more important role to play. Now, if the CIO does not have the new attitude of having to look at or willing to look at the business as business, and still focused on saying, okay, you haven't done this and you haven't done that, then he's not going to be reporting to the CEO, right? And if the CIO can evolve himself, I think organizations will very quickly realize that they need to change, make a shift. In the current scenario, is a person who understands a little bit of everything, right? But has a larger understanding of how business is run, right? So his primary understanding is how business is run. So you will find techies leading businesses and creating businesses, whereas you will find a lot of CIOs not moving anywhere further up the ladder because they're so focused on the normal routine activities of just managing uptime that it's not going to make a difference to them. A CIO being able to understand what business he is in and working shoulder to shoulder with the CEO in terms of actually taking ownership of business and helping the CEO manage and transform the business to improve the bottom line, to improve the profitability of the organization. I think that's the role that CIOs have to evolve to. And if they can do it, they will get a role. And if they can't do it, they will actually always play second citizen. Leadership skills in this context is about understanding business and leading the business. So let me give you an example. A CIO cannot restrict himself to producing a report that someone else wants on time, every time. I think that is the old definition of a CIO. Today, the CIO should be willing to question, why do you need this report? And can I actually add more value to this report? And what is it that you are really wanting to achieve with this report? And how can I enable you with information from the larger system to make this happen? I think if that sort of communicates the difference to you, that's the difference that I'm talking about. So just to give you an idea that CEO of a retail company may want to know the difference, the sales of different outlets at the end of the day, but the CIO may actually come in and say, sir, why do you need this information? And he may say that, look, I need this to understand which particular outlet has underperformed today. And the CIO may say, sir, how about if I actually give you an exception report which tells you which outlet has not performed as per the expectation. Now that's the difference that I think that CIOs, I'm putting it at a very, very generic level, but that's the difference that a CIO needs. I would tend to say yes, at least in the larger organizations. In the larger organizations and, IT department is today akin to a help desk, which has been outsourced in most such organizations, right? It may not have happened in SMEs, but in the smaller organizations, in the larger organizations, it has been outsourced to a vendor. It's a different story that if the CEO's computer stops working, the CIO goes running. Now that should not happen. The CIO is not there to fix the CEO's computer. There has to be a help desk which actually takes care of that. Now, unless that changes, the CIO will never change his role and will never evolve into being someone else. The CIO has to actually say, this is the way I can actually help you change the way you do business. So the CIO has to manage multiple skills. What does a CEO do? Let's look at what a CEO does. CEO is actually managing a business. He's wearing multiple hats at various points of time. And I think the CIO cannot be very different. He also has to manage multiple hats. So whereas one hat is to make the business operational, the second hat is to manage all his vendors, and the third hat is to think for the business. And I think those are the three hats that a CIO needs to focus on and say, can I switch roles? Can I move from role to role and perform best in each role? And yes, I agree with you that the CIOs are not necessarily armed for this, right? Traditionally, they have not been able to skill themselves accordingly. And I think that's where if a CIO needs to transform himself, he needs to actually look at himself, understand and assess himself where he is, find the gaps and transform himself. It's a structured way. I don't think there's any time where we can stop learning. And I think the CIO needs to start learning, whether he's at 40 or 45 or 50, there is always room to learn.